All right. So we still got a few people joining in. Really appreciate everyone being here. Ho, got the whole crew. Johnston Baseball's in the house.
Oh yeah, man. These are the guys, man. They're the guys. They get it done.
I really appreciate y'all being here so late.
It's awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So we are just about to get into the presentation. One thing that I strongly encourage everyone to, I've had the pleasure of already watching it. So I just really encourage everyone to see the holistic approach that these guys take. It's extraordinary, and it's something that I've been a part of high schools and colleges, and I haven't seen anything like it. The second thing is communication. You'll see that as well. The way that these guys communicate is probably second to none. So I'm really excited to show this presentation. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, or you can ask them at the end. And so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the presentation.
Hi, my name's Coach Barta. I'm the head coach at Johnston High School. We're bringing you a little presentation about pitching. I don't think I am this massive expert by any stretch, but what we're going to do is kind of roll you through all our little pieces of our pitching puzzle, as we call it. I do think it's applicable to every high school, every college, maybe even higher. I've talked to a number of different people at different levels that has helped us get here. To be clear, I've stolen everything. So we're just going to do our best. We hope you get a little bit from this. Johnston is a large high school in Iowa. We play in the big class. I have 120 to 130 kids this year out for baseball. You can see a little bit about us here. We played in 7 of the last 8 state tournaments, which we're very proud of. That's a goal of ours. We'd like to get down there to play at Principal Park, which is a AAA stadium in Iowa. And we've won 3 of those 7. And so we're proud of that. We're proud of our tradition. As we're in this room where we keep a lot of our trophies. But more importantly, do we know what the heck we're talking about? You're going to see me and 2 of my pitching coaches, which will introduce themselves later. This is our ranks in pitching over the last 5 years. 3-1, 6-2-1. We also have a lot of changeover. We're such a big school that we rarely have young kids come up and play. So that's not like the same guys leading us on our pitching staff every year. We've had pretty much new staffs year in, year out, and we really feel like kids are fully developed by seniors. And so we're hoping that our program can provide you some good insight. So we view our pitching as like a puzzle. 9 puzzle pieces that are the same size, and we don't like to think that one is more important than the other. 9 areas that we like to communicate and teach kids about. Take about a couple minutes on each of these puzzle pieces and talk a little bit about them. We can't get too deep, as we know you could talk a half an hour about the front side for pitching, right? I mean, so we're going to just touch a little bit on each of these 9 and kind of show you the overall program. But weight room, recovery, volume and intent, arm care, connection, velo, stuff, command, and programming, that's what we view as really important, equal-sized puzzle pieces. And here we go. Let's dig in with the first one, the weight room. Obviously that should be important in everybody's program. We're going to talk about why it's important to us. We talk about 4 different things we like to do in there. Number 1, ultimate strength. So I think about, hinging, squatting, push, pull, all the same things a lot of people are doing. We just think it's very important to teach the fundamentals of those movements. The hinge, the squat come into our game, especially the hinge we talk about all the time pitching wise. And if our kids don't know how to fundamentally move correctly, that's going to be a problem. And yes, we load up the weights, we track it, we measure it, and we want to push kids in it. The second one is speed. We have 2 awesome track coaches that run our speed program, and I communicate with on a daily basis, and we're feeling like we get a lot of explosive movement out of our speed and agility days, but they also help us laterally, so we're not always working in one plane of motion, which leads into the next piece, which is working our strength and explosiveness in all different planes, because baseball we're moving laterally, we're moving rotationally, and I'm not an expert on all this stuff, but I'll tell you we do a lot of cool things, and you might have seen that video that we just showed in the background. We try to do a number of different things to make kids uncomfortable and move and be explosive and athletic in different planes of motion. And this is actually an older video of us just doing some different types of things. Some basic squat and rows, but also some random med ball slams. You see us working off of 1 foot because we do that a lot in baseball. And last on this slide, we talk about mobility. And we've done a multitude of different things, starting from FMS test years ago to reading some books by Randy Sullivan, to having organizations come in and test out our kids. We've also played with Fusionetics, which is a program that kind of kicks you mobility exercises based on your test out. So that's another key part of our weight room. More importantly, our kids grew in strength. All the young pitchers are when they were sophomores, which is when I really get after them in the weight room. And they've all became D1 athletes by their growth. And you can see them, they're right next to each other. And we're really proud of those guys for their growth and development, specifically because of the weight room. So that's puzzle piece number 1. Puzzle piece number 2 is recovery. And at times in my life as a coach, I've missed out on this. And so we'll see what we can provide to you here.
I will tell you that recovery has been the focus of our entire offseason, and we're really excited about where we're going.
Number 1, we talk about adaptation. Human body is amazing on how, if you stress it, if you really push it, and you give it time to recover, it'll build back just slightly stronger so it doesn't have to deal with the stress as much the next time through. Recovery periods, most people say 24 to 48 hours, which makes you say we don't want to necessarily push our kids really, really hard every single day. We usually see a decrease in performance or an increase of injury. So we really want, we have an ideal scenario where we're going to stress the body hard in regards to throwing or in the weight room, and then let it time to repair and adapt 24 to 48 hours. And then step 3, we're going to stress it again and try to stress it a little bit more and continue that process. Now the stress has to be under control. We're going to get to that in a little bit when we talk about volume and intent. But the key piece here is we're planning some things right now where we're giving 2 full recovery days in between tough workouts, and which would be a little over that 48-hour mark usually. And we're pumped about that. We're excited about that. We're going to talk about how we use those days in a little bit. Next, sleep. We've done some testing with our kids. We've used some apps. We really stress sleep. We feel 9 hours is the right amount. We've listened to some guys that are way smarter than us talk about this. We've talked to a couple doctors and PT people that have helped us about how sleep can increase performance. First of all, talking about physical performance, injury chances go down, better reaction times, you're usually a little bit faster, your body's more prepared for stress. But mental influence is what we see at the high school level. Proper sleep, the kid is just more pumped up about showing up to the park the next day. And with a positive attitude and mindset, they're about a little bit more willing to push themselves, especially on the next day that they go to get stressed out. And so we're really excited about pushing sleep and kind of tracking that with our kids and seeing how they respond. Nutrition. We stole a little chart offline. We stole a lot of stuff offline. Sorry about that. But this little chart kind of talks about major league players and where they sit weight-wise. I always thought this was interesting. We show this to our kids, how a corner infielder in the big leagues is somewhere between 200 pounds to 235. That's a lot of weight. I mean, we get high school kids that walk in. I talked to a kid today. He's a sophomore. He said he's 125. Are you kidding me? I mean, how are we supposed to produce power with 125? Some of these kids are eating a ton of calories right now. We're tracking that. Sometimes we like to hook them up with a local nutritionist, but we instruct them a lot. All this stuff, we instruct them. Meetings, communication, studies, pictures. This is what we do with our kids. This same presentation we're giving to you, we gave to our kids already. But as far as nutrition goes, I talked a little bit about weight, but it also gives energy. And again, it goes to that recovery piece. If we're eating right and sleeping right, you show up with more energy, you show up physically ready to go. Next slide is kind of interesting. It shows a couple of our former players. Gabe Swanson over here on the left came in at 135 as a freshman, sophomore. I didn't notice him. I did not notice him at all. I felt like he was just another one of our countless young players. And we work with him, but like as far as like him popping out of the crowd, no. Now, a couple years later, he's 195, he's shredded, he's going to Nebraska to play, and he's one of our best players, and he's a stud. And because of, I think, nutrition, sleep, weight room, he really changed his body. So he just signed at Nebraska. Over here we have Evan Sulman. Here's him in high school, and this was a while ago. I was not good enough in the weight room or nutritionally, but he got with some coaches that are way smarter than me, specifically at DMAC, which is an awesome community college near us. And as you can see, he became a big nutrition buff that actually started his senior year. And to this day, talking to Evan's buddies and Evan himself, he will not eat things that don't fall in line with his diet. He obviously put on a massive amount of muscle and meat, and that's a picture of him now. He committed D1 out of DMAC. He was an all-region player. It shows what strength and nutrition can do to you if you emphasize it in your program as a coach. We talk about hydration, specifically prepping for big games or hotter days. We play in the summer, but we abide by the 48-hour rule, starting prepping your body 48 hours before an intense competition. But that's basic hydration you could look up. On the next slide, we go a little bit into, or actually slide after this, a little bit more about recovery and the phases of recovery. Baseball sometimes demands multiple days in a row of really high energy work. And because of that, you can catch up with recovery after those days. So we will have periods in our schedule we like to give guys like 72 hours of pretty low-key work. We have a yoga lady that comes in and works with our kids. We can do some recovery yoga, a little bit more intense yoga piece. We can have more dry practices where we're doing less intense work, but the details go up. So there's ways we get around of getting their recovery or just simply taking a day off, which is perfectly okay. Some coaches you talk to, they'll say like, I don't want them doing anything. It's a recovery day. Let their bodies kind of respond. So we're a fan of that. I always like to give breaks in the calendar where we're able to take a couple days off. So what we're attempting to do with pitching is push really, really hard once we're ramped up on like a Sunday. And then on Monday, we really want to be completely low-key, basically doing nothing. If it's a recovery type of stretching or yoga session, I suppose that's okay, but a lot of days will be a day off for us. On Tuesday then is our second recovery day, and we're going to make it more of an active recovery day. I still am not going to have them throw that much. It will be probably somewhere in the volume range of about 45 total throws from like basically warm up to when they're finished. But we're going to help them move their bodies a lot on that second recovery day. So you see here a couple images and a video of a guy throwing a med ball off the mound. Or using some of the Oat Specialties products that have been huge for our program. I know we have a couple water boys, we use med balls, we use all their products. And really what we're doing is we're training movement off the mound without taxing our arm. Once in a while we do throw a sock in the mix too, the DuraThrow sock. I'll talk a little bit about that more later. But we're able to still get better on that day, but not tax our guys, specifically the arm, as much.
All right, next up will be puzzle piece number 3, volume and intent. And I'm Coach McGuire, I'm the sophomore coach under Coach Barta. And it's my third year diving into this. And over the last couple of years, we've reached out to a lot of different people and a lot of different coaches. You know, volume and intent, how much are our guys doing, how much at a single time? Had to work it backwards. We know when our first game is, we know when our first practice is. Now we just need to know when do we add that stress, when do we add that recovery, and put it all together. So as you take a look at this, it's very important that you realize it's over time. How can we get them to where we want to be over time with the amount of time we have? And lucky for us, we have a few months, and really we're at the very start of it here in Johnston, here in Iowa right now. And how we place that stress, we're going to start pretty gradual. I mean, it's actually pretty low to start out with the intent and the RPE. And what I mean by RPE is what I'm sure a lot of you already know. It's a simple scale, and we've stolen it from here, a slide, and it talks about how 0 is rest, or 1 really easy, and it gradually works our way up. And we start at a very low amount with also low value. And from there, that'll be a Sunday. So again, to go back to Coach Barta, what he talked about, Sunday will be our high intent, our high volume RPE. But to start out, it won't be that high. And then we have that day of rest. And then we're still keeping our bodies in shape. And then we come back and gradually go from there. But really, it's just about the gradual climb in it and how to execute our plan, both individually and as a team as well. And as you take a look at this calendar here, again, I mentioned how we're at the part basically right now. This is perfect timing to do this with like 55 total throws from start to finish, and with an RPE that is decently low, and like 5-6 RPE. So right in the middle is how we started there. And we progressed 7 days later to a 6-7 RPE by adding 5 throws. And after that, it's 5 more throws. We're still kind of at that similar RPE because we have enough of a calendar to do so. And gradually, we just keep working it into this evaluation period, which we'll touch about a little bit more coming up. And after that, it's individualized period where we hope the guys are where we want them to be and we can really zero in on what they still need to work on. That leads us into spring league, and then after that, into our first month of practices and games as well.
I'm Coach Fuller. I'm the varsity pitching coach, and I'm going to talk about arm care. And we have what we often refer to as a holistic approach to arm care. And it's basically a general philosophy where we break arm care into arm care on the field and then arm care in the weight room. Okay? So on the next slide, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into specifically our arm care routines on the field. And this would be something that our players would do before a practice or before a game. So basically we have 6 pillars that kind of tie into our arm care on the field. And as you'll see over here on this video, we've got some players that are kind of going through their some different arm care routines. So we break arm care into breathing, soft tissue work, mobility, movement preparation, arm activation, and recovery. So instead of just focusing on what we often think of as arm care, right? The muscles in the shoulder, the muscles and tendons around the elbow, we dig in a little bit deeper and we break it down into these 6 categories. So you'll notice that we have a breathing routine that lasts about 5 minutes that our players always start off with. From there, they'll go into some soft tissue work with foam roller or lacrosse balls. That takes about 5 minutes. From there, we go into a short mobility circuit where they're working on different aspects of the kinetic chain. From there, they go into what we refer to as movement preparation, where they're basically doing some sort of a dynamic warm-up to break a sweat. And then from there, they actually get into working those muscles of the shoulder and muscles and tendons and ligaments around the elbow. Okay. The biggest thing that we've learned in the last couple of years has been that arm care. Okay, arm care isn't strictly the arm, and I pointed to that earlier. We talk a lot about trying to consolidate stress. I'll use an example. A pitcher goes out and he throws a complete game, he throws around 100 pitches. The last thing we want our players to do is to go down to the bullpen, grab a band, and start cranking more on the shoulder or the elbow. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, arm care is good. It's just arm care is more than just what we often refer to as shoulder work, elbow work. Okay. Another thing I'll touch on is that too much can be bad. Okay. That's why typically the night after we have a pitcher that pitches, or even the day after, we focus more on mobility. We focus more on stability instead of stressing those areas out. Once again, as Coach Barta said, we want to make sure that we recover. And then lastly, and maybe the most important thing, is we always want to give our players some choice. And so what we typically do in the off season, what we've just started now, is we'll go through different routines, and we'll have players play around with some of the tools that you saw in the video or on the screen. And then as we get closer to the season, okay, we allow players to kind of pick and choose what do they like to do for their pre-throwing, what do they like to do for their post-throwing, and some of those things are the same thing, but always understand that what feels good to one player doesn't necessarily feel good to another player. So once again, we call this a kind of a holistic approach to arm care. Arm care is good, but we try and consolidate the stress as much as possible, and we focus on those 6 pillars of arm care.
Coach Barta back with you. Puzzle piece number 5, connection. As we go on, we appreciate the Texas Baseball Ranch, the Florida Baseball Ranch, Oat Specialties, and all people that taught us all this stuff. Secretly, we are at everything, your boot camps, your ABCA presentations, stealing, and we appreciate you. So, what are we looking to do? We're looking to teach our kids about connection, but more importantly, keep our kids healthy. They always say start with the pain. We don't want our kids to have pain. We want them to be able to work in the 9 to 10 RPE of intent 2 to 3 times a week once we're ramped up. And if we're able to do that, then we're able to train and we're able to grow. The problem is if we're always feeling pain and soreness constantly, you get stuck in this like gridlock of pain, soreness, recovery, and you're just trying to really survive. And that doesn't work. And there's tons of reasons that kids have that. That's what our 9 puzzle pieces is all about. It could be our programming, it could be a weight room, it could be arm care, it could be a number of different things. This puzzle piece focuses on connection. We have this chart that we stole from the Texas Baseball Ranch of how to evaluate connection. And we changed it, but we like it because it just simplifies it a little bit for our high school kids. Specifically, we want to be able to hand it to them. And because we have meetings that they talk about this stuff, they're able to read through their evaluation and know what it means. And then we line up drills or blends that would help them, move from the red to the green, although they understand that the red is opportunity. And sometimes we pitch that opportunity as velo because it can equate to better velo, but also is better health. And through that health, you're able to train more and develop the velo that they want so bad. Talk about upper half connection. These are some of the things we look for. Obviously, we're going to take some terms that have been made by experts in our field like Ron and Randy, and I'm sitting up here like making it my own. I apologize. We're just trying to use these terms in our program the best we can. We try to sell this to our players with guys that are great in the game of baseball. So we have some pictures of some guys that get into good positions. Usually we do videos, but for the slideshow I use pictures. Show some guys that decelerate properly. That's great. You can keep going, coach. And then we go into bottom half, talking about the hinge and coil into our hip. We also talk about that on the hitting side, how to move our bodies, get into the hinge. It's again how we relate it to the weight room. But we talk about getting into your glute and how guys are different in that. How much glute depth can be different between kids. How some kids you can talk to them about getting in their glute. Some kids rather think about the hinge or the coil. Or every kid's different, and the terms you use, you just need to fit what the kid can. You need to find something that works for the kid, the cue that works for the kid. We talk about the back leg and the shin angle, so we don't come so quad dominant. Going off of that, driving our whole foot into the ground. Sometimes I'll get there with the kids, stick my fingers underneath their toes, and if their toes crush my fingers, I scream at them. Number 1, because it hurts. Number 2, because you're getting into your freaking quad. But holding that hinge down the mound or staying in the glute down the mound, we talk about BLR, firm front leg to rotate around. We talk about momentum in 10. I just read something the other day, I can't remember who posted it, about how, I think it was Tom House, about how if you were actually out there with a major leaguer, you wouldn't realize, number 1, how hard they're really throwing, but how fast they're moving. And so we usually take a younger kid, and then one of the first things we do is have them just be a little more aggressive, move a little bit quicker. I really like this video of him warming up in the pen because it shows how he's able to work around his front hip.
With a firm lead leg.
Being a high school coach, a lot of our kids have trouble feeling that position, and usually it might be something backwards in the connect chain that leads to them not being able to do that. But it's just good to show videos like this so they can see it and then try to replicate it. All right, moving on from there, this is one of our own. He was a 91, 92 guy that's at JUCO right now, and we just felt like he had a lot of good things going on, specifically with that front leg. It was right after showing Lincecum. Love this video. It shows guys that were studs for us, that had issues that we had to find on video and then evaluate them. And so we see like a high elbow guy here. We see a forearm flyout guy, in my opinion, here. And he's got a front leg brace kind of issue there that we would work on as well. Little forearm flyout here. Forearm flyout, a lot of times they're younger guys, it's common. We've identified like 21 possible drills. Taking these drills from people that are way smarter than us, and we film them with our own guys and our own coaches explaining the drill with tremendous detail and purpose. We've uploaded them to a drive that allow kids to consistently watch them, not only in practice, like on the spot, like, hey, this is on my chart, I'm gonna rewatch it, but also like at home. You know, if they want to get in their Durthrow throwing sock and work at home, they have all the drill work. We also have additional teaching videos about like connection. And so we feel like we've done a good job of putting a library together for kids, and hopefully maybe that's something you take away from all this. But again, all this equipment, from the weighted max grip balls that Oates just came out with, to the throwing sock, to the connection ball, we use all this stuff and much more. These are examples of like what a drill would look like, and you might see some over here too, but like this is a former player of ours that committed to Iowa, and I'm with him as he demonstrates a drill, explaining the drill, and you can kind of see that over here. We don't need the sound, but there it is. And then there's some videos over here of our kids actually executing that drill. Coach Fuller, I don't know if this video on the bottom would play, and this is a long time ago. Like this is 2015 or so. We've gotten better at stuff since then. Blending. So how does this work? This is, again, a very old video, but go ahead and play that, Coach. We just have a couple mounds and some tape and all kinds of stuff around it. But they're doing drill work on the side, and it depends on the blend. It could be a 5-to-1, 4-to-1, 3-to-1, 2-to-1, 1-to-1. That's a ranch thing. They're doing a drill on the side. Some of the drills we made up, and again, this is from like 2015. So half these drills aren't even in our program anymore, but it gives an example of blending. They'll do the drill over here, and then they come onto the main mound for like a pitch or two, a normal pitch or two, and the thought process here is like, we're going to drill it so we can feel something, and then jump onto the regular mound and throw a pitch, and hopefully over time, that drill works into that normal pitch, and it becomes who we are, and our guys start moving better. We're looking for incremental change. I think that's a big piece here. That's the one thing we sell to our kids. Like, you're not going to see change immediately. In fact, I became obsessed a couple years ago with a 21-day fix, where like, you got to go 21 straight days of beating on this habit for it to help. I mean, literally, I'd have my kids come in 21 straight days to work with me. It was freaking crazy. I was here all the time. I have a wife and 3 kids, so I had to pump the brakes on that. And plus, it was probably a little overkill. So this is our guys working through that incremental change. You're seeing the same guys that showed you earlier with the issues, them either working on it or having fixed that. And a lot of these guys went to play college baseball. And so they've worked through that, and they've made things really good. I love this next one. This is Jack Dreyer, who's an absolute stud. Borderline form fly. Look at him here with no connection ball. Love it. All right? And so we've made that incremental change. We see that often. But as a coach, you got to realize like that change is going to happen over time, and sometimes over years. That's why it's important as they're young. You have good coaches like the guys I got who can identify things early and start that change and that process of change. Wanted to touch on the Durthrow throwing sock because it fits right in here to the connection piece of like, if you have a library and you're able to give the kids the information and they want to do things at home and they understand how recovery works and where they can fit in their extra reps and times of the year that are best for it. The throwing sock is a great thing to have at home or inside if you're in a cold weather climate or don't have a lot of space to use. I know when I started at a 1A school, we had like no space, right? You might be in a wrestling room trying to figure out how to throw. You can't play catch, but you do have the Durthrow sock, baby. I love Oak specialties for that. Every kid in our program has one, and it gives us flexibility to do things. Like, for example, we could have a recovery day. Maybe a second recovery day where we're in the weight room doing some stuff. Then right after our weight room or right before our weight room workout, we get like 30 throws in our Durthrow sock, doing a couple connection drills.
I also love the sock because it promotes such good deceleration patterns.
The sixth piece of the puzzle is velocity, velo, the one thing that we are all searching for, craving, and we wish we just had the answers to do it right away, but we obviously know that's not the case. And one thing we want to put across is that velocity does matter, and once you get it, it can make the rest of your stuff and the rest of your pitches that much better. And one thing we found with some of our players here, for example, is that if you can master the pieces of the puzzle leading up to this point that we've talked about, your chances are very good. It'll make it that much easier. And velocity tends to find high character kids who make great decisions. These guys, they lifted right, they ate right, they hydrated well. Everything worked out perfectly to this point.
Even though we know velocity is built through all 9 puzzle pieces, we also know that there's certain things we can do with a baseball to explore the reaches and the limits of our body in regards to velocity. And I'm talking about higher intent RPE throws.
A higher RPE and higher intent phase. And again, here are 3 more demonstrations. We talked about how we do this quite a bit earlier. But the one on the bottom is our turn and burn that our guys absolutely love. And that's them getting their running start, turning, burning, throwing, and then seeing if they can PR on the LED radar. And the next video is one of my favorites. It's Coach Barto, actually, from just a couple years ago in the backyard. And he just kind of does everything right here. And this is honestly a video we've shown before to our guys, and talking about the arm action and pulling down and making the long throw. And yeah, it all started right there, and there's a reason that our guys have gotten so good at it. And this right here is actually a video that we put together a few years ago. And it's showing basically everything that we've taught up until this point into the windup and out of the stretch, and translating it into velocity that the guys can see themselves. So it touches on a little bit of everything that we do beforehand, what they do when they get up on the mound, and then the finished product of what they're able to see velocity-wise.
Guess who's back?
Number 7 is stuff. Developing good pitches to go along with velo. Yes, we want to develop velo, and that's great. It'll make your stuff better, but I feel like the art of teaching off speed has been lost, and maybe it's because I couldn't throw on. So I had to learn how to throw a ton of different pitches, so I'm obsessed with it. So as we go to the next slide, the first question you need to ask is, all your pitchers on your staff, you got 20 pitchers, college, high school, I don't care, how are they all different? When your pitcher comes in the game out of the pen and the dugout sitting there, they should have to look at that pitcher and say, okay, we're gonna have to approach this guy differently. It could be he's a subby from either side. It could be a lefty specialist, righty specialist. It could be multiple breaking pitches. He could be a velo guy. Every kid should have his own identity, and a lot of that has to do with your ability as a coach to teach stuff or to teach him different ways to be effective. It starts with knowledge. We make a lot of videos with our managing crew. We have a managing crew at our high school level that we've put together over the years that we love. We have a head manager who specifically is obsessed with Rhapsody. I think she'll be in the majors in no time. They develop videos, or coaches develop videos about how to throw pitches properly. Specifically, how you need to spin the pitches. A curveball should spin a certain way from every arm slot. A slider should spin a certain way. What are the movement profiles going to look like? What does a change look like? What do these pitches look like when you're a subby guy? Okay, so we go through all that stuff. We talk about it with people, with our kids. We make videos. We play around with grips. There isn't one grip to help everybody. We're very, very flexible as long as we can get the correct spin. So my advice to you, if you struggle with teaching off speed, is make them find the correct spin. Develop knowledge on how to do that, and then they are able to play catch with their partners from close distance, and they're able to get feedback on, yes, that was good spin, no, that wasn't. Then they can slowly move it back and start throwing those pitches off the mound in their last step. But then as you move forward, once you've played good catch and you develop the spin, we have different tools to help you as you move through our program. You can see some different tools there, from softballs to striping. Baseballs are easy ways. There's different things you can buy, like the Clean Fuego, the Cave Club Spinner. We just got more of those in today. I love catching all our guys. So once they're on the mound and they're throwing a field pen, I catch everybody. And I just said we had 130 kids in the program. I catch everybody to give them feedback on their spin and their movement profiles. But then as you get really good, you can go work with our managing crew on the varsity levels, who will put them on Rhapsody and explain to them and let them play. In my opinion, we use Rhapsody. Just to be clear here, like, I'm no expert at anything, but I love Rhapsody as a tool to either evaluate or to let a kid play. Okay, so he like throws a pitch, sees its spin efficiency, has the knowledge from the videos he's watched and the coach that coached him up, and is able to change grips and change feels and cues to find pitches with better movement profiles and better spin efficiencies and everything like that. We use Rhapsody. We also have a managing crew of coaches that are very knowledgeable in the area. Okay, and there's an example of like a movement profile down here on how all 4 of the pitches have different profiles, which makes a guy, again, to my original point, different and hard to hit.
All right, so we've talked about velo, we've talked about stuff, okay? Those are awesome things, but the icing on the cake is command, right? What is command? Well, command is a skill, right? And before I really break that down, I want to talk about one pitcher in our program in particular. His name was Andrew Zimmerman, and he pitched for us a couple years ago. The top stat line you'll see is Andrew Zimmerman as a junior. But didn't have a real successful junior year, mainly because couldn't find the strike zone enough, didn't have command. And then you'll notice down here at the bottom, Andrew Zimmerman as a senior, okay, he goes from 4.72 ERA to 0.71 and ends up being a first-team All-State pitcher for us and an absolute dude on our pitching staff. Okay, so you might ask, well, what did he do from his junior year to a senior year? He developed command. Okay, so to dig in a little bit about what command is, guys, command is a skill, right? Command is the ability to throw the baseball where you want it to go, okay? And understand that command isn't necessarily just throwing strikes. Command is also being able to locate a ball off the plate when you need to, okay? Command requires a great deal of training to master. So what you see up here on the slideshow is how we train command, how we develop command with our guys. Okay, probably the most important bullet point up here is when we train command, okay, we don't overthink it. We never talk about walks. Okay, that's probably the last thing we want to do. But we put them in an environment where, in a bullpen setting, in some sort of environment where we're working on specifically locating different parts of the strike zone, and then, as I mentioned earlier, locating different parts outside the strike zone. So, how do we develop command? We work on short box bullpens. We have variable distance bullpens. We have field bullpens. Visualization exercises, and then our normal bullpens that we throw in. And then as you see on the screen, besides Clement back here, I'm showing the command that he has that made him a stud. We use a lot of the Oat Specialties trainers. We use the 9-zone pocket nets. We use the command trainer a ton. And then we use some of these other implements such as the chaos balls and bullpen strings. Okay, so once again, guys, command is where it's at. I truly believe that in order to get from being an average to a really good baseball program, or to be a really good baseball program to an elite baseball program, you got to have command on the bump.
Puzzle piece number 9, the last one of 9. 9 players on the field, 9 positions in the batting order. All right, we went with 9. It's our 9th puzzle piece programming. Here we go. As a coach, you need to be thinking about the day, the week, the month, the year. We have our entire year planned out before the year starts, and how we want to change volume and change RPE and ramp our guys up and have points in our year that we want to play with stuff or train velocity and know our arms are ready for it and know we have time for it before the competitive season starts. So we like to think of ourselves as a 12-month program in regards to programming, even though there's certain months we can't throw. Our plan throughout our year. January and February is a ramp-up period. You can see it here. We ramp up through our volume. So we adjust the number of throws. We have 2 heavier days, and we have some recovery days. We add recovery days as we go. They're labeled by RPE. You're going to see early on a ramp up, we start with very low RPE to slowly ramp it up. Both the intent and the volume move up over time in January and February. As we get to the end of February or early March, we call that our evaluation period. At that time, we let our kids cut it loose. They are fully ramped up at that time. It's safe to let them cut it loose. We work in recovery days that include no throwing or very little throwing and some body work. But the evaluation periods allows us to take a lot of video, pull down, see where they're at as far as their PRs. We like to pull down PRs. The kids love it. It's fun. Okay, we don't do much, but it's fun. And then mound PRs, which is obviously what this is all about. But then the video. That's where we go with the evaluation period. And we also evaluate them in the weight room. We evaluate athlete, different things like pro agility, jumps, everything like that. But as we move to the next stage of like April and really the end of March, what we do is we take all that evaluation and group them, bucket these kids by, are you gonna have a 4-week velo session, a 4-week like pitch design, maybe using Rhapsody if they're younger, maybe just finding spin? Are you going to have a command session like Coach Fuller just got them talking about? Or what are you going to do? What's your bucket and what are you going to work on based on the evaluation? Also that time we reevaluate connection with our connection sheets. As we move to April and we get through that individual time, they play some like preseason spring league, okay, where it's kind of a chance for coaches to again evaluate really just talent. Okay, and what we need to work on when we actually get to full practice. May, we get 3 weeks of full practice where our kids can again identify certain things to work on and we're fully ramped up. The volume intent is there. We're able to train 5 days a week. Obviously, we still go high-low method, okay, of like we're gonna push hard and have 1 or 2 low days and push hard, 1 or 2 low. We stay with that, but we're ready for things. We're ready for the work, we're ready for the intent. We still label those numbers on our calendar. As we move to the last slide, what it looks like we play in June and July. Really in June and July, we're very, very concerned about volume on days we are not playing. We're also concerned about on days we're playing, when you're not pitching, what are you doing? Okay, even if you're a position player, high school coaches listening, my shortstop's the closer, what if they don't take infield? Okay, what if we take them out of infield to limit their volume for the day as a shortstop? There's things like that we're going to buy more into because we realize recovery is way more important. Some of the errors we've made and some of the adjustments we want to make moving forward. August and September are actually like great showcase months for Iowa kids. So they get out to showcase. They might play in a fall team, but we still control all the throwing during the week. And a lot of times we have to individualize those plans based on what they're doing outside of us, but we're still in control there. And I think that's the thing here is like, as a high school coach or a college coach, my advice, and I don't know if you should always listen to it, I'm just this high school coach in a random place in Iowa, but my advice is like, if you don't know what your kid's doing with their arm on a daily basis through the 12 months of your year, you are probably losing development opportunities and running a very, very high risk of injury. And I've learned that from experience, okay? And so I want you to trust me on that. I feel like we've experienced success because we've made positive change. October, November, December, our state requires us to shut down during those periods. But when I say shut down, that doesn't mean our program shuts down. I really try to control what our kids do outside of me. I don't want them to throw if it's supposed to be a shutdown period. But we can train culture. Our kids are in the weight room. They're eating right. They're sleeping right. There's ways that your kid is developing with our 9 puzzle pieces because we've programmed our whole year. And we understand how we're going to take these 9 puzzle pieces and fit it into every week and every month. And what's more important, our kids understand what's going on throughout their calendar year for growth and development. And in the end, we hope that we're taking our kids and producing a good product on the field that has lifelong memories for these kids. We're developing great people and these players that can play at the next level and have more fun, great experiences that they remember for the rest of their lives.
Man, that was a lot. All right. One of the things that I want to start off with, because when I watched this the first time, the communication that you talk about with your kids, not only on the throwing aspects, but hydration, sleep, recovery, all of that stuff. Do you just have, do you have sit down meetings like school sessions with them? Do you take them individually? Like what's your process there?
It changes every year, especially with last year with COVID. We made videos for everything. I think our Google Drive is like 250 gigs. So, it's crazy. But no, we try to do small meetings. You know what I really loved is the weight room. Like your kids go in there, usually after school for us. They have a good workout and they have that
little bit of like mobility and flexibility stuff that we usually, it's like their cool down after their workout. And it's like, I try to make a point of every day bringing them something new. Sometimes it's a handout. Sometimes it's a different coach giving a presentation on nutrition. And we try to keep it really short and sweet. So it's something they can they hold on to, or they can stay focused for. So that's been a big thing we've done. Yes, we also have a ton of meetings with our kids. Just trying to, to be honest, a lot of times it's not all about hydration, nutrition. It's about like culture. We have our share of culture meetings as well. But yeah, we're meeting with them all the time. Sometimes maybe too much.
Well, and then the other thing is not only the communication, I think, with the kids, but we had a presentation earlier yesterday, and it was by Chris Litton, and one of the things that Chris Litton talked about was the communication that he had with his assistant coaches. And so, I mean, it seems like all of y'all are really in sync with what y'all are teaching the kids. And so, how do you go about that, and how do how do the kids relate after, you're a freshman and sophomore year, you're with one coach, but then they jump to a junior year, but because of that same coach has the same philosophy, how does that help that kid just progress through high school?
You guys want to talk to that, Will?
That's something we just talked about recently, because a year ago we had this exact discussion right at this time, and that was basically, Coach Barto was starting to realize maybe a certain guy or two would get to him, and maybe the lingo wasn't there, or the action we wanted him to do just wasn't quite there yet. So then instead of, maybe getting on that kid wondering, why don't you have that? We take it on ourselves, and we think, all right, we need to get the lingo down. That Google Drive that Coach Barto talked about was huge, because we basically created a library of what the freshmen need to master before they get to the sophomore level, and then to Coach Fuller on the JV and varsity level. And I think we've done a really good job of it lately. And there's nobody really that ever looks at us kind of with that deer in the headlights thing when we say a certain term or a certain drill to do on the mound. And we just keep going with it, and, putting stuff together for what we're going to be working on coming up. We feel really confident that all our guys know what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to some of the questions here. I've got a private question here. It says, it's a little vague. It says, can we get that chart? Can you elaborate on which chart? There was like 10 of them. The other thing I will mention, if you do want, like any of the information and stuff like that, this is recorded. You will be able to watch it again. So I highly recommend, maybe just going back through and rewatching it, and then, stopping it where you want to, and that sort of thing. Looks like another question is, how do you determine when it's time to increase the RPE?
Yeah, I can kind of talk to that. I'm going to credit Iowa baseball, specifically Coach Lund, who sat down with us and helped us a lot with that. And I think I saw him on this, so I want to thank him personally. But first of all, I think for everybody out there, we're asking that same question every year. Like, what's perfect? What's the great way to increase volume and intent, or RPE? And what we figured out is I don't think you can ever go wrong with starting extremely slow. I've pushed it in the past, and I've had a couple kids get injured. We've had basically 3 to 4 injuries over 12 years. So I like to think we've been safe. But we've really figured out that start really, really slow, build our base. So we go 5 to 6 RPE. We then move to 6 to 7 after 2 weeks. We're going to move 7 to 8 after 4 weeks. And then by that evaluation period we briefly talked about, which is the end of February, early March for us, we really want the guys to be built up to cut it loose, both intent and have the volume built up as well. I know one thing I've struggled with in the past that Coach Fuller brought to this program, who's sitting here behind me, last year, for example, I really struggled with not only ramping up the volume, but ramping up the intent. And so we will start including like high intent throws, like 1 this day, 2 this day. And we advance so that when we get to the evaluation period, it's okay for them to cut it loose, 10 to 20 times, because we've gotten there with that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Looks like another private question here. It says, where has Coach Barta coached at previously, and what are the differences between where he has been in the past and where he's at now?
I'm pretty much a Johnston lifer. I started at Buena Vista University, where I played with Coach Edie, who's a legend in himself, and was with Coach Shonka and Coach Ryan Dupic, who are Ryan's a legendary guy, man. And so we graduated college together. We played together, and then he taught me everything he knows. So I didn't teach him one thing. But no, I coached up there for a year. Coach Edie let me stay on the staff for a year. That was a great starting point. Then I actually went to an extremely small school named Newell Fonda, and I was a terrible coach. So that's where my start was, and I became an assistant at Johnston for a couple years, and now we've kind of figured it out down here over time. And we don't have it figured out, but we're getting there. We're growing. Luckily, I've supported myself with amazing coaches. There's a couple other coaches in this room here too. Coach Little and Coach O'Brien are sitting in here as well. Without those guys, we wouldn't have a great program. So.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. Great presentation. Kids are lucky to have you guys. I'm wondering how you on-ramp. Do you throw for a certain amount of weeks before introducing plyos, or do you use plyo throws from the beginning?
That's a great question, again, that others have helped us with. 6 weeks is our ramp up, no question. And maybe that could be longer, to be honest. I would never go underneath 6 weeks. I think that's really high risk, and that's Coach Fuller is an expert in that, and I should let him talk to that more. But what I'll tell you about that question too is it says introducing plyo. We use the plyo balls for certain drill work, especially early in our warm up, and it's pretty limited how much we're going to use the plyos early on. We're going to start with baseballs. And then it becomes I think a personal, what does the kid need? We have kids that'll cut the fastball a lot. I don't know if anybody else has that problem. And sometimes the plyos lead to cutting fastballs. And so we like to mix up between the Oat Specialties weighted leather balls or weighted, the harder baseball and the plyos based on what the kid needs. I hope that helps. Coach Fuller, you got anything on that?
Yeah, I would say, a lot of what we've done, just even in the last year, has been trial and error, right? You try some things, you see what you like, and you see what you need to adapt or adjust to. We've, just looking back in the last year, we used the plyo balls a lot last year. And, one thing I think that we would all agree is we always want to try and get feedback from players. And I think that's, I remember certain players saying, I just like the feel of the seams in my hands. And so that's one of the things, one of the ways we've adapted is, we're really using those plyo balls more for warm-up purposes. And then a lot of our movement work, a lot of our drill work is we want to get, whether it would be a weighted ball or a regular 5-ounce, we want to get the players to feel the seams as much as possible.
All right. And then I don't think that this is too far off the topic here. That I got another private message here. It says that they are very impressed with the resources that's available to the program. Could you speak briefly regarding fundraising and building those resources?
That I might have to give a presentation on that for an hour or two. But no, when we started here, I remember we had a big closet, and that big closet was stuffed full, and you couldn't walk in it. And it had 500 pairs of pants and some wiffle balls. And we said, hey, we might need something else. So we worked really, really hard in our initial years. I would say, so this is my 12th year. I would say in our first 5 years, we fundraised as much as possible. From cards to writing letters to random raffles. Our goal was that's just fundraise and grow our stock of equipment as much as possible. But then I was it's the next piece is you've got to beat it into your kids to put it away right and to take care of it, because that stuff is not cheap. Everybody in this meeting knows that. Even at the college level, it's not cheap. And so luckily we have coaches in the manager group who, oh my gosh, you don't want to put a piece of equipment together to put it away wrong. Our managers will come get you. And so I think that's made our stockpile of equipment grow over the 12 years. It's not like we bought it all at once. We've just taken really good care of it. And I'm proud of our kids and our managers and our coaches for that being a detail. We like to be detail oriented. But fundraising, I don't think you can meet the kids with what they need without just being really motivated fundraising wise. And even something simple like selling cards. I remember like the initial meeting with the kids, like the expectation is you're going to sell 30 cards. Like, don't come to me and say, I couldn't get it done. You're going to sell 30. Okay. And don't mess that up. And I think if you have those kind of expectations for your kids, they'll meet them. And that, that'll help, bring the funds in that you need to really grow your supply of equipment to help kids.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Whenever I was in high school, that was one of the things that my coach did really, really well, was he made us a part of the fundraising, but also made us realize that if we wanted something, if we wanted to look cool uniforms, if we wanted the swagger, then we had to work for it. So, yeah, absolutely. All right. We got another question here. It says, how many days a week are you throwing in your on-ramp? And how does that increase as you move?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The first week, we're doing a Sunday, Wednesday, Friday throw. The Sunday is like 50 throws for the first week. Wednesday is going to be 50. Friday is going to be 30 in a sock, and that's week 1. And we'll increase to throwing on a Tuesday as a recovery as well. So our average on-ramp week for all the coaches out there is a Sunday night will be slowly increased in volume and intent, but a heavier night. It used to be called like an A day, right? Monday, we want the day off. Maybe we want to play around with some like yoga, some light yoga. Tuesday is going to be like med balls, bands, core velocity belt, or whatever kind of belt. A number of things like that to help us move better, and a little bit of a recovery throw. So I know there's some rules out there that I've seen before, especially from Driveline, that might be like 30 throws on a recovery day. Ours is going to be about 45. Wednesday would be high intent, high volume again. Thursday, we're hoping for nothing. Friday, we're back to that recovery piece of learning to move our body well in the weight room and get into a sock for a little recovery throw. And we'll just repeat that over and over and over again.
All right. The other thing that I'm impressed with, and something that I think that maybe coaches can kind of take out of it too, is the amount of stuff that you involve your managers in as well. Like you talked about, that the one manager was a Rhapsodoholic, loves it. I feel like, I went to a really small school. I went to a 1A school. We had 50 kids. And even then, we had people that wanted to be managers, that wanted to be a part of it. And so one of the things that I think is taking some of those people and adding them to your coaches list. I mean, like you were talking about. So what's y'all's process on the man? Like, do y'all have a process, or do y'all just accept people that really want to be a part of the program?
4 or 5 years ago, we had Ryan Dupik's brother, Kyle Dupik, in our staff, who did a wonderful job. And he wanted to collect more data on the freshman level. And we were attempting to collect a lot of data on our level, but it was like Coach O'Brien working his tail off on everything, trying to collect data. And so Coach Dupik developed a core of kids, and we said, we want to hold on to those kids. And he ended up having to leave. He moved. He's working at Alta Aurelia with a wonderful coach. But anyway, we held on to those kids, and we made them recruit more. Then we started reaching out to like PE classes, because you can show up in a PE class, everybody's there. So I reached out to the PE teachers, some teachers in the middle school to try to catch them early, a number of announcements, couple meetings. And you'd have these random kids show up that were maybe interested in stats or interested in baseball, but they weren't any good and they quit after 8th grade. And you get this random assortment of kids just like all the kids we coach though, you have to like support that passion and let them kind of go with it and let them experiment with things they want to do. And so, some of them will come up to us now saying, I want to work with this piece of tech. Can you buy it? Or we have it. Can I take that over? And we're just trying to meet them and let them like pursue their passion. And it's led to now we have 10 managers going into this year. I meet with my head manager like almost every day. I mean, literally she's in here every day, and she's wonderful, and she's running everything for me. And it's going to, honestly, they're like additional coaches, some of them. I mean, we have 3 of them back Chloe, Josh, and Savannah. I want to say their names because they need to be recognized. And Evan actually is another one back, and he does all our marketing and video, which is a whole nother story. But these three, they run, 2 of them do hitting and 1 of them do pitching. And I would say if I hired them as a coach, like if they went and got their coaching endorsement, which one of them is, and I hired them as a coach, we would all love them. I think we'd all be perfectly fine with them coaching our kids besides just pulling data. And so I think it's about first like recruiting, like going out there and saying we need people. And then when you get them in, don't make them fill water bottles. You got to somehow like make it a passion of theirs that they love and they feel like they're really adding to the program. I know we had 2 managers sitting next to me in the dugout through all our games last year. So I have Coach O'Brien right next to me, who does a lot of data for us to scouting. And then these 2 managers sat right next to me. They helped me call the pitches for every game we played. They had the data. They taped the data to the wall. Sometimes I'd look at them and be like, hey, does he throw his curveball or slider more for a strike in this count? And they'd be like, oh, definitely throw a slider here. I'd be like, all right, throw the slider, like, and so it's awesome. But then they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm making a difference. If I'm not here, we lose. I truly believe that. And so there's my 2 cents. Hope that helps somebody.
Yeah, no. And especially now, you're right. Data is just one part of it, but you look at, the statisticians now that are getting, big league jobs and stuff like that. So, that can definitely be motivating for sure. So, all right. I got a question here. Can you go a little more in depth on how you progress with command? I know, a little broad.
Yeah, I will. I'll go in, and these guys can obviously add to what I'm going to say. Command is tough, right? We all want guys that can pound the strike zone. And one of the things, as Coach just mentioned, that I probably didn't stress in the presentation enough was just how important we take our catch play routines. And so we try and, there are certain days that we let kids, kind of do their own little, especially on recovery days, their feel catch, right? But most every other day, whether that would be a high intent day or a moderate intensity day, we want the players working on command. And so we do little things. I know one thing that we got from University of Iowa and Coach Lund was, at least once a week we do a kind of a command challenge. The first 30 throws of our catch play routine, our players are trying to hit different spots and they're competing against one another. And then, some other things we do a game called hip to hip, the hip to hip game where players are basically, just going back and forth, trying to hit the other player in the right hip, left hip, going back and forth. So it's just, I think there are lots of different ways to get creative in catch play, but the thing of it is, it can't be just a guys, we're going to give you the baseballs, we're going to go back and talk in the dugout, and you guys are just going to do your thing. It's got to be structured. And one of the things I think our entire coaching staff is really good at is we walk around and we evaluate, we monitor the catch play, and we talk to the players about, how they feel or what they're doing in terms of command. And then, as I mentioned in the presentation, we do a lot of stuff that we got from Texas Baseball Ranch, from Florida Baseball Ranch, from Driveline, from other organizations. In the bullpen, we do a lot of variable distance where we'll set up targets in, one will be at 50 feet, one will be at 55, and one might be at 65. So we're constantly trying to challenge guys to hit certain spots. And yes, we want them to be confident, but we also, on those competitive days, we really want to try and get them to compete and really work on that different elements of command. And then we use, in bullpens, we have the designated hitter dummies we set up a lot, and we try and use strings quite a bit just to have some sort of external focus besides the catcher. I think anytime you can do that, you're developing command.
A couple other things on that too. Catch play, like this is like my soapbox with catch play. Like I don't know if I really coach anything well, but man, I'm gonna coach that catch well. And every coach says it. Like you go to the ABCA, I mean, it is like I would bet my savings on people talking about catch play. But then like I'll watch before every game I play and the catch play is crap. And now there's some exceptions in our league. We have some teams in our league that are coached amazing. I mean, like our league is fun to watch. I mean, it really is in Iowa. I think we have like the best league. I'm sorry if there's anybody from a different league in Iowa out there. But like if you're really like big on your catch, then why is like guys constantly running back to the fence, or why do they have stationary feet, or why are they not doing transfers? Like if our kids have a ball hit the ground and catch, they're running for that. Ball don't hit the ground. And so if you want to develop command, you put that on it, because like we run for every single ball that hits the ground. And I don't mean like I'm running poles, but they're running a little sprint. They don't like to do that. Sometimes it gets to be a sled push. They really don't like to do that. And so, I mean, it's just about that. Like you say you coach the catch, but do you coach the catch? I mean, that's kind of my piece on command. The other thing, the reason I'm big on that is I'll never forget. I went to New York, watched Roger Clemens pitch. He was playing for the Yankees. I was in New York, Yankee Stadium, and I was like all pumped because he's pitching. And I was a Roger Clemens fan kind of. And I'll never forget the catch he had before his game. It was like, I swear, I think he was playing with like a coach that was catching his pen before the game. I think it was. And like the coach literally didn't move his glove. So he went out to like 250 feet or something. And the coach just like every throw was right here. I'm like, okay, so he's a master of the art of throwing the baseball. And so I think every time your kid throws, you're trying to master that art more and more. And so it's as simple as catch sometimes. Yes, Coach Fuller does a ton of different things. Coach McGuire at the sophomore level, that's amazing. But man, sometimes we make things more complicated than it needs to be.
You know, one of the other thing that I noticed during the video was even whenever y'all were throwing into the walls and stuff, you still had a target. You still had something to throw at. So, I mean, I just see a ton of people throwing into empty walls. And so that was something that I really noticed. All right. Let's see here. See, Drew says, love the manager's piece, simply amazing. I love the stats for my players here, but it is so time consuming. I'll steal this from you guys. I'm here in Minnesota, and we'll get down to see you guys play hopefully this spring. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. We might have to come see you. Maybe you give us some. All
right. Well, if there's no other questions, and I really appreciate y'all's time. I thought the presentation was amazing. You know, like I said, it was from my perspective, you know, one of the things that is interesting is just the holistic approach and the communication. So, you know, I personally, whenever I first watched it, that's what I got out of it was, you know, y'all communicate to the kids, y'all communicate to each other, you know, that sort of thing. And but I think there's a lot of nuggets that a lot of people were able to get out of it. So I really, really appreciate that.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Where and when will it be available to rewatch? Okay, so just give me about 2 weeks so I can upload it, everything, and then we will send an email out with all of the links so that you can rewatch it at your own time, at your own pace, that sort of thing. So you can pause it, do all that. So another outstanding presentation. Thank you. Well done, gentlemen. So with that, we're going to go ahead and do our last giveaway for the day. So this giveaway is actually going to be a sock and connection ball. So let me just get that real quick. Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, well, we can't do that one. Let's see. 12. If you're asking, it was actually Johnston who won, so that, yeah, we can't do that. All right. EQ. So the username on here is EQ. If you will email me, Gunnar at Oats Specialties, GUNNAR at oatsspecialties.com, then we'll get the baseball training sock and the connection ball out. You know, the products that you've seen in this presentation as well as others today. Tomorrow we will start our presentations at 9 a.m. We've got another day packed of information. I really, really appreciate everyone coming out and watching. The participation has been amazing. The questions have been great. And of course, our presenters have been awesome as well. So for everyone, have a good night. We'll see you in the morning. Thank you.